Hey there, and welcome to a long overdue video. Yeah, it's been ages since I've done one, probably over a year. I think the last one I did was with my good mate Ryan when we sort of done a run through of the Immortal discography, and at that point I was sort of enjoying more doing like the chatting with someone else about stuff rather than just going off on endless collection update videos and stuff like that. I was getting a bit bored of that stuff, but and just in general, I think I had, at the time just some different stuff going on. I was focusing on my own music and life rubbish as we all have to deal with. You know, everyone deals with that shit. So yeah, basically it sort of got put on the back burner. Um, but yeah, lately I've just been thinking about you know, doing a couple of videos and just seeing what happens and if the fire's still there, if I'm enjoying it. Um, you know, I'm not going to commit to anything as far as constant content or anything like that. Um, but yeah, I'll just do what I feel like doing basically. But for today, I thought I decided to, to go in, a nice and easy one for the first video for ages. Um, Before I was sort of doing a bit of a series called Back to Back, where I'd focus on two albums from a band's discography, which sort of marked a turning point. Whether it was like a drastic change or just something that marked something different. Um, yeah, so I think I've done a couple of those. I think it was Enslaved and I think it was Immortal actually. And I really enjoyed sort of doing those and seeing the differences in the albums and what sort of changed and between them. So yeah, today I will be going through two albums from a band that I absolutely love. A very big band, a very influential band, and that is Slayer. So I'll be going through the Show No Mercy album and then the Hell Awaits album and the differences between the two. And to me, it was a significant change in the band. Obviously, in between this, you had the Haunting the Chapel EP, which was probably the catalyst for what came out on Hell Awaits. A lot of the intensity and sort of you know there was a big shift basically from Show No Mercy, which was more rooted in the um traditional heavy metal, some more Maiden influences, and just in general, the new wave of British heavy metal influence was there, but still, still had its evil vibe, but it wasn't pushed to the max like it was on Haunting the Chapel or Hell Awaits, which I've sort of heard. I think it was Kerry King sort of mentioned that that's their Merciful Fate album, if you want to call it that. But I can see where he's coming from. It's very a lot of off kilter riffs and changes and stuff. So but yeah, we'll go through that. But yeah, straight up, I'll just delve into the legendary Show No Mercy there. Nice glare on the ultra shiny vinyl cover, and I will not attempt to take it out because we all know what happens when people try and take out vinyls on video. They drop it, and usually just chaos ensues. So I'll refrain from doing that. But yeah, I mean, Show No Mercy came out originally in '83, and yeah, I think before that they had a track on one of the Metal Mass. Is it Metal Massacre? I can't remember. One of the Metal Blade comp. Um, that Slagle put out. But yeah, and I think Aggressive Perfector was the track there. And when you listen to that track, obviously, it's not as aggressive, and even though it's called Aggressive Perfector, um, it's I'd say the Kill 'Em All stuff, by Metallica obviously is a bit more aggressive and a bit more heavier guitar wise. The guitar sound on Aggressive Perfector was quite thin. Um, and just yeah, they hadn't really hit their stride with the full on aggression side of things, which would characterize later Slayer material. But yeah, Show No Mercy. Straight off the bat, a song like Evil Has No Boundaries, um, totally classic song. But in saying that, what strikes me first when you hear Show No Mercy is the very odd drum sound. And I think, some stuff has been said about that and how it was recorded. It was apparently uh I think it was Brian Slagel had sort of instructed the band who, he must have been sitting in on those sessions or whatever, and saying that, to record the drums in this peculiar way, which was like to record everything and then insert the cymbals and hi-hats or whatever later. So what you get is this very bizarre sounding drum sound with, it's quite high in the mix, but then you got these, I don't know, it just doesn't sound right. That when you focus on it, you can really tell what's what a sort of mess that decision was. Doesn't sound right, and why you'd want to tell Dave Lombardo, a drummer of that caliber, to do something as bizarre as that is beyond me. But that's what they did, and whether you like it or not, it's created like a distinct sort of character, on this album. Sort of doesn't sound like anything else drum wise that was going on at that time. But yeah, I mean, when I think about it, this album is just chock full of classics. Evil Has No Boundaries, The Antichrist, Die by the Sword, Fire Till Death, Metal Storm Face the Slayer, which would be my favorite song on the album. Um, Never really ended up on in live set lists or anything like that. I just think it's an absolute classic. It's one of the more sort of melodic, sort of a bit more going on in that song. Songs like Fight Till Death are way more sort of straightforward. Evil Has No Boundaries, more straightforward. Um, and same with The Antichrist. Die by the Sword, absolute classic. That was in the set list up until the end, I think. Well, they always played that. And it's a great song as well. A bit more sort of mid-paced, but fantastic track. And then we go over to side two, which is Black Magic, another classic. Tormentor, another sort of hidden gem that you never really hear people talk about when it comes to Slayer. I always loved Tormentor. Final Command's probably my least favorite song on the album. By no means bad, but yeah, it's just, to me, it doesn't hold up against the other tracks. Uh, Cryonics, what can be said? Fantastic track. The end section, very reminiscent of Maiden. It's got that sort of twin sort of melody in that sort of vein of what sort of Maiden were doing, I'd say. And Slayer never really went down that path of the more ear pleasing twin melody stuff. They sort of went down the Merciful Fate um things where it sounded more evil, and sort of some of the melodies just didn't sound right, and they sort of, to the untrained ear, or maybe the trained ear, I'm not sure, but just they sound off a bit and just very evil sounding, which would sort of characterize where Slayer go. They sort of became the kings of that. And final track, Show No Mercy. A bit more of a typical straightforward sort of banger. I hate that term banger, but I just used it, so maybe I should edit that out at some point. Yeah, so can't go wrong with this. I was a bit late to this album, actually, to be honest. When it came to Slayer, I was geez, it wouldn't have been till like '94 or something. I was quite late to Slayer, whereas with Metallica, that was late '80s. Slayer, a band I always saw I saw them around. Same as Creator, I'd always see the logo. Remember there was a Creator logo graffitied near my school, and I was like, oh, I know that I've heard of that band, but I never actually got to hear them for quite a long time. But yeah, so my entry point with Slayer was Seasons, if I remember correctly, and then obviously Divine Intervention came out and got into that heavily. And I was actually listening to that album the other night, and I don't get the hate for Divine Intervention. It's a bloody great album. Um, but yeah, I mean, what was I? Yeah, that's right. I was going back to where I first got into Slayer. So this album, Show No Mercy, it was a bit later. So obviously on that journey of checking out Slayer stuff, and like a lot of bands at the time, you got your starting point, and then you go back and check out everything. And when I first heard this, I was like, this is fantastic. I love the guitar sound. I love the just the as such a huge fan of early Metallica and old Kill 'Em All, Kill 'Em All sort of style, and Ride the Lightning. I love the guitar sound on this. that sort of tied in with that. But I thought the songs on this were better. I better than Kill 'Em All anyway. Yeah, so it just sort of struck me when I first got it, like that I sort of missed out on a lot of the early stuff when it came to Slayer, and that I had a lot of catching up to do. But yeah, obviously at this time as well, you had quite a, you know, pushing the early sort of almost black metal image that some bands were doing back then with the eyeliner, and just the spikes, the satanic themes. Um, yeah, so they were definitely pushing that, side of things, obviously, being influenced by Venom and stuff like that. Iconic, iconic sort of stuff on the back there goes that fantastic glare. Um, Especially that one with Jeff Hanneman holding the inverted cross there. Legendary stuff. So yeah, I mean, as a first album, total classic. Um, Obviously, I can't speak of the impact it had at the time, but obviously that impact was quite huge, especially with what was going on scene wise at the time. With um, the extremity sort of being taken up a notch, as opposed to I don't want to call them dinosaur bands, but like Metallica and Slayer and these bands were a step up. Obviously, along with Venom, were a step up from the new wave of British heavy metal in terms of extremity and sort of vocal styles and stuff like that. Speed, less reliant on melodic stuff. So yeah, classic album. Sort of doesn't sort of point yet to where they go to, because I don't hear a whole lot of what goes on next on this album. Maybe certain little elements in Metal Storm Face the Slayer. Um, there's some parts on that, but in general, it's a bit more straightforward and less sort of riffy and all over the place that they would end up. So yeah, one of my favorite Slayer albums. Love the artwork as well. Can't go wrong. Got the Show No Mercy shirt on today. Loving it. Which brings us to 1985's legendary Hell Awaits. Um, so the first thing I heard from Hell Awaits was from it was like this weird compilation tape that came with like a magazine, and they had the song Hell Awaits, but it was from the live album Decade of Aggression, and I was like, whoa, this is love that song. And then obviously going back to Hell Awaits, I got a cassette version and used to flog that to death, but was just taken back by how evil this album is. It's dark as it's just riffs everywhere. It's just they're firing on all cylinders. Lombardo is just really starting to peak, um, really in that space of what, say, 2 years. He's really pushing the envelope as far as what the sort of drumming was doing at the time. And considering apparently he didn't play any double kick until he recorded it on or until they wrote Captor of Sin, which ended up on the Haunting the Chapel EP. That was his first introduction to double kick, and that was the first double kick um, song that Slayer did. So, it's not like he'd been going crazy with double kick from day dot. He sort of like just obviously started that, and then obviously driven just to perfect it, and he's just turned out to be one of the most classic metal drummers of all time. But anyway, yeah, getting to the songs anyway. Opening with the legendary Hell Awaits. Um, Fantastic, iconic intro. Really sets the mood for what is about to sort of happen. Um, what can be said about it? Tremendous build up to this song, and then all hell breaks loose, literally. Um, gets very, very thrashy, but the opening, it just sort of sets that tension before it explodes into that sort of the fast stuff. Kill Again, not much spoken about that song really. You don't really hear Kill Again. There's quite a few tracks off this that sort of get overlooked, I think. I mean, I do think this album is looked upon as, a classic, but the band themselves, I think they used to only play Hell Awaits, maybe occasionally at Dawn They Sleep. Um, Kill Again, Praise of Death, Necrophiliac. I mean, Necrophiliac, what a song. Um, just a really evil song, especially the vocal parts by Tom in the middle section, down to the fiery pits of hell. That sort of line when he's singing that, it's just utterly evil sounding. Crypts of Eternity. That's a very sort of meandering riff, just riffs everywhere. They never ever did anything like that again. Hardening of the Arteries is probably the most straightforward song on the album, but again, it's not like straightforward like on Show No Mercy. You know, there's a lot more going on in the technicality of the riffs and stuff like that. Um, yeah, so I mean, At Dawn They Sleep is just one of my favorite Slayer songs of all time, along with Necrophiliac and obviously the uh, self-titled song Hell Awaits. Only 7 songs at the time. I'm not sure, bands tended to have longer albums and stuff, but it's the songs are quite involved. There's a lot of riffs. Crypts of Eternity goes for over 6 minutes, I think. Um, so it's not like they're just busting out Rain in Blood, quick songs, and you only get 7 of them. There's quite a lot of meat to sort of like sink your teeth into on this album. Um, for me, it really shows the band hitting their stride. Um, they were just really tight and on fire, and you watch some of the live footage of Slayer, in particular that live in Holland footage on YouTube, and they're just like killing it. Totally ultra aggressive. I don't think many bands at that point were matching these guys when it came to the aggression on stage and just how brutal and sort of savage they were. Yeah, so total classic. And obviously, the reason for doing the back-to-back sort of series, if we want to call it that, is, obviously more to do with 2 albums that sort of are more about a shift in band's direction. And this sort of points to that. I'd have to add Haunting in the Chapel in there as well, because that was obviously the catalyst for Hell Awaits. Um, but yeah, when you see where they start with Show No Mercy, way more straightforward. Great songs though, but yeah, once they get to Hell Awaits, they're firing on all cylinders. A lot more technical, a lot more evil sounding, a lot more interplay with guitar riffs and just in general more sort of. I don't like using the term meandering because that sort of sounds a bit like, hey, that's boring, but just more involved songwriting takes you on a journey, and yeah, it's a dead set classic for a reason. Obviously, they go on to Rain in Blood next, which is the complete opposite of what they do on this album and is just 28 minutes of straightforward um, speed and just a punch in the face. So it's basically maybe they got their Merciful Fate progressive influences out of the way on this album because they definitely didn't do anything like this again. Um, Not even remotely close to the songwriting of what they ever did again. So yeah, it's a special album and definitely a special album in the context of Slayer's discography and particularly in their early development. So yeah, that's what I've got to say about the first 2 Slayer albums, which constitute today's video in the back-to-back series. Um, just a nice, easy one to sort of ease my way back into doing some more videos um, as I felt the fire sort of, coming up inside me to do some more videos and talk some metal. So, yeah, I will be doing some other stuff coming up, but like I said earlier, yeah, if I'm not feeling it, I obviously not going to force it and just sit down and do endless you know, collection update stuff because that was getting a bit sort of tiring and wasn't exciting for me. So, um, yeah, I'll just probably continue doing some of these back-to-back ones and give my opinions and just, talk through, some of the albums and stuff like that. Or, yeah, I'll just, whatever the hell idea pops in. If I think it's a good idea, I'll just go for it. Um, I've noticed that, the channel's sort of still been ticking over quite nicely. For some reason, the Abigor videos, gone, I wouldn't say ballistic, but compared to a lot of my other videos, which have had fuck all, views. I think the Abigor one is up to like 4,000 views or something, which for me is quite ridiculous. But yeah, maybe I think those ranking videos in general tend to get a lot more views. People tend to like ranking stuff for some reason, and I don't mind doing some of those. But yeah, like it won't be like a constant thing. So anyway, I'll stop blabbering on and going on with shit. I just wanted to do a video, get back into it, and yeah, sort of break the ice again. And I am still alive for the people that um, were wondering. There's probably no one out there who gave a rat's, but yeah. Anyway, I'm back. I'm going to do a couple of videos when I feel like it, and I appreciate everyone who's watched any videos in the past, left comments. Um, so yeah, hopefully I can keep doing some stuff. Thank you guys.